Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. In the SEC on CBS on Saturday afternoon, we've got a top 20 matchup with the Alabama Crimson Tide traveling to the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm going to preview and predict whether I think that Alabama can go on the road and knock off Kentucky for Alabama to stay atop the SEC standings, or whether I believe that Kentucky can get a massive home win over the Alabama Crimson Tide that will help out their NCAA tournament resume and keep their slim chances of winning the SEC alive. Now, Alabama, they're 19-7 and 11-2 in the SEC. They've done much better in conference play than they did out of conference. They only are one game ahead in the SEC standings, so this win would be huge for Alabama to be able to continue to stay atop the standings. But Alabama, I just feel like it was a case that they scheduled really tough in the non-conference, and it took this team a little bit of time to figure things out. But once they finally did, they have been rolling in conference play. And as you can see, Alabama is actually being given a 61% chance to win this game. So Alabama, according to the ESPN predictor, is being favored to knock off Kentucky in Rupp Arena, one of the toughest places to play in college basketball. Alabama has won 4 of their last 5 games. The only game they lost was at their rival, the Auburn Tigers. But Florida almost did knock off Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but Alabama was somehow able to survive that game in overtime. Whereas if you look at Kentucky, they've won only 3 of their last 5 games. They lost to Gonzaga at home, so that shows you Kentucky can lose at Rupp Arena. And Kentucky also lost at LSU in heartbreaking fashion by 1 point. But Kentucky does have a big win over the Auburn Tigers on the road as well, so it has been a mixed bag for Kentucky. Kentucky is a very perplexing team this season because the Wildcats are kind of giving me vibes of the Alabama team back in 2021-2022, where Alabama could go out there and knock off top 5 teams left and right, but then they were losing to some bottom-of-the-barrel teams in the SEC, and Kentucky's kind of doing that this season. I believe overall that Kentucky is a better team this year than that Alabama team back in 2021-2022, but the inconsistencies of Kentucky's basketball team is frustrating the fans, and they're wondering, how can we go on the road and knock off a top team in the SEC like Auburn, but then lose to the LSU Tigers, a team that's not even in the NCAA tournament conversation? It is very aggravating if you are John Calipari and Wildcats fans that want their team to be at the top of the SEC. Kentucky is a very talented team, but the problem for Kentucky is that a lot of their players are freshmen like always, and that makes it tough when you're trying to be consistent because usually older guys are going to be more consistent players. But Kentucky does have some experience like Trey Mitchell and Antonio Reeves, but it doesn't matter. Kentucky just still has not been able to get over the hump when it comes to playing consistent basketball, and their defense is a big reason why they have lost some games that they should have won this season. And if Kentucky's going to be able to beat Alabama in this game, they're going to have to score a ton of points and hope that their defense does well enough, or they will not win this game. That's why they lost to Florida at home. They lost to Gonzaga at home because their defense just could not stop the other team. Antonio Reeves averaging 19 points per game and 4 boards. He's having a great season this year, the most veteran player on this Kentucky basketball team, and he's even putting himself in the NBA draft conversation because he's shooting the basketball very well. Rob Dillingham's having an excellent freshman season, averaging 15 points per game and 4 assists. He's an explosive player off the dribble. He's a good 3-point shooter, and the way he's playing right now, he could end up being a top 10 draft pick. Trey Mitchell's averaging 12 points per game and 8 boards. But Trey Mitchell has been banged up in the past few games, so it's not 100% given that he will be playing in this game. Reed Sheppard has been a surprise freshman this season for Kentucky. Most Kentucky fans did not expect much from him, but he's averaging 12 points per game, 4 boards, and 4 assists, and he's shooting a ridiculous 51% from 3. I would think that's crazy if that was in like the first 10 games of the season, but we're almost at the end of the season, and Reed Sheppard is still shooting 51% from 3. Unbelievable. He definitely deserves to be a first-round draft pick. DJ Wagner's averaging 10 points per game, and then Kentucky's bench, it's very deep. Justin Edwards, Adu Thero, Aaron Bradshaw, Big Z, Ugano Uyensu, all these guys contribute off the bench for Kentucky. I sometimes think John Calipari needs to incorporate some of these guys a little bit more because they do bring some big energy off the bench, and that's why Kentucky's averaging 88 points per game this season. They shoot 41% from 3 and 76% at the line. They don't turn the basketball over too much, and they are a very good team at assists. So all that screams that this Kentucky team should be elite, and on offense they are. But again, their defense is not the best in college basketball, and that's why they have had some tough losses this year. And Alabama is not the team Kentucky wants to be playing against offense when it comes to having a poor defense, because Alabama's offense is elite as well, just like Kentucky's. Mark Sears is the engine that makes the Crimson Tide offense purr. He's averaging 20 points per game, 4 boards, and 4 assists. He's shooting a fiery 44% from 3. He's a great free throw shooter as well. Mark Sears has been one of the best guards in college basketball this season. He's been much better than he was last year. Aaron Estrada is averaging 13 points per game and 5 boards and 4 assists. Grant Nelson's averaging 12 points per game and 6 boards. He's a really good player. He's struggling from the outside shooting the 3 ball, something that he did a much better job at North Dakota State, but he is shooting well at the line, and overall, he's been a good addition for Alabama. Rylan Griffin's averaging 11 points per game and 4 boards. Latrell Wrightsell, he is questionable for this game. Nate Oats has said that he is not 100% sure if he will be able to suit up in this game, but he's averaging 9 points per game. It would be huge for Alabama if they could have him. And then Sam Walters, Nick Pringle, and Jaron Stevenson and Muhammad Wade all contribute off the bench, which allows Alabama to score 91 points per game. They shoot 38% from 3 and 79% at the foul line. That's excellent when you're going on the road in a tough environment. The fact Alabama can knock down free throws at such a high rate like that, especially if the game goes down to the wire, always gives Alabama a good shot to maybe pull off a win. And both teams give up 77 points per game. So as much as I've said Kentucky's defense has struggled, Alabama's defense has also struggled as well. They're not a great defensive team either, but Alabama is a bit better of an offensive team than Kentucky, which is why I think Alabama has found ways to win more games, especially in the SEC, than Kentucky has, because Kentucky does have some non-conference losses as well. They did have a tough non-conference slate, just like the Alabama Crimson Tide. But in SEC play, Kentucky's got 5 losses, Alabama only has 2. And I just think because Kentucky's not as good of an offensive team and their defense struggles as much as it does, that's why Kentucky has lost as many games as they have, whereas Alabama has won more of their games, because they've just found a way to score more points than the other team more often than Kentucky has. The last time the Alabama Crimson Tide played at Rupp Arena, they lost to the Kentucky Wildcats. And the time before that, when they played in Rupp Arena, they were able to knock off the Kentucky Wildcats with Nate Oats as head coach. So it can be done, and Alabama knocked off Kentucky the last time they played on their own floor as well. Alabama's a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, whereas Kentucky is down there as a 5 seed. Kentucky's resume is not as good as Alabama's. So this win is much more important for the Kentucky Wildcats. But who do I think is going to win this top 20 matchup in the SEC? Alabama is a fantastic offensive team, and I think that is going to allow them to have a great shot to win this game. The most important side of the ball for both of these teams, even more so than the Alabama offense, to me, is the Kentucky defense, because Alabama's offense is going to be dictated by how well Kentucky's defense plays. If Kentucky's defense goes out there and plays like they did against Gonzaga or Florida or Tennessee, there's no way they're knocking off the Alabama Crimson Tide. Mark Sears is going to end up going for like 30 points, and it is going to be an ugly afternoon for the Kentucky Wildcats. But I do believe that because Alabama is the top team in the SEC and Alabama's a top 15 team, that probably will prompt Kentucky's players to play harder. I feel like it's an effort issue. John Calipari has said that his team loses out on so many 50-50 balls, but if you watch that Auburn game, Kentucky was winning all the 50-50 balls. So I just believe if Kentucky would play with maximum effort game in and game out, that would really help the Kentucky Wildcats win more of these games. I believe that they're going to give it 110% because they're playing a top team in Alabama. There's been a lot of rumors floating around. Is Nate Oats going up to the Kentucky Wildcats, possibly scouting for the job? Because John Calipari, he's not in super hot waters right now, but a lot of Kentucky fans are not happy with him. So this will be a huge win for John Calipari to stave off those rumors. If Nate Oats can go into Rupp Arena and get a big win, that would heat up the discussions more that possibly Nate Oats should take the Kentucky job if it becomes open. So I don't know if that's going to have any impact on this game, but I'm actually going to go with the Kentucky Wildcats to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide 84-81. Both these teams are very talented. I believe Kentucky has more talent than the Crimson Tide, but Nate Oats is a great coach, and he has his players playing fantastic ball right now, and they've been able to win in a lot of tough environments this season. But I do believe that Kentucky's effort level is a lot higher with their star freshmen when they're playing a top team, and I believe John Calipari's squad, being at Rupp Arena at home, playing a top 15 team in the Alabama Crimson Tide, they're going to find a way to play good enough on defense, and they're going to score enough points on the offensive end, and maybe Reed Sheppard or Rob Dillingham will drain a big 3 in the final seconds to be able to pull out a 3-point win over the Alabama Crimson Tide. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Whether you think that Alabama can go on the road and knock off the Kentucky Wildcats in Rupp Arena for the second time in 3 tries and to stay at the top of the SEC standings in the process with a win, or whether you think that Kentucky can get one of their biggest wins of the season by knocking off the Alabama Crimson Tide at home, and for John Calipari's squad to stay in the SEC title race. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.